So I practiced on NEURON, the questions from official guide. So that did help me a lot. Plus, it was focused on a one particular subsection, and I could easily filter out the easy, medium, and hard ones. So just to boost confidence, I used to solve some easy and medium questions, and then I used to feel good and then move to hard. So again, NEURON did help a lot. So I would say it's better to take guidance early instead of spending time on your own figuring things out. So what I'd done initially, I had started watching some videos on YouTube. While those videos helped, it did not provide a very structured process for me to follow. But again, had I taken eGMAT subscription earlier, I would have had enough time or enough pace to complete my course better, or even I would say scored better.
With eGMAT. Today we have with us Nikhil, who recently scored a 725 on his attempt. And what makes it all the more interesting is it's in the first time itself you were able to get a 99th percentile. So welcome Nikhil, and a huge congratulations to you.
Thanks, Abha.
So when you saw that score pop up on the screen, what was your first reaction? Was it something that you predicted while giving the test, or was it something that surprised you a bit as well?
No, it was a little surprising. When I was giving the test, I had an idea it's going okay. It's not going bad. 725 was something that I was not expecting. So getting that and seeing that 725 number on the screen was a very different feeling.
Yeah, I can understand. I'm sure it must be a sense of relief and happiness.
Yes.
Yes. So let's take a step back and we'll start from the very beginning, because I remember you taking a diagnostic mock when you started your journey with us and you scored a 635. Right. If we look into the major improvements, while quant was always your stronger point, you were able to deliver a Q90 as well in this attempt. Verbal and BI saw an incredible improvement, both of them. Right? So why get started with understanding what were the things that changed in verbal for you, what were the skills that you learned, and then we'll talk about the score improvement.
So for verbal specifically, what changed during my preparation was I had a structure to tackle every question. So instead of looking at every question from a fresh perspective, I had learned what are the points that I need to keep in mind when reading the question so that I can save some time. And then again, framework around assumption. What do I want to break? What is the conclusion? When does the conclusion break? Things like this help me fasten up the process. And of course, I think the most important improvement in my prep that helped me get to this score.
Just because I know that your journey wasn't linear, it had its own shares of ups and downs. So, what was the biggest challenge in verbal? That
critical reasoning was a major challenge. So every time I used to, like in the cementing quizzes, I was stuck at 60% accuracy. I was not able to clear that hard cementing barrier of 70%. I took multiple attempts, I think 4 or 5 of these, but the score was always the same, 60%. And at time it got frustrating, like why can't I get one more question correct and get done with it, and so that I can move forward. But what helped me through this process was to build resiliency and the habit of looking at newer questions with a fresh perspective. So
right. So when you look back at your mistakes, right? Because on the platform you were maintaining an error log as well. So when you look back at your mistakes, what were the common areas that you could identify as patterns?
So boldface was something where I was struggling a lot. So assumptions was a strong forte. Assumptions, inference questions, these were good. But as soon as I was attempting the hard quizzes, I was seeing more and more boldface questions rather than assumption and strengthening weakening. Boldface was a bit challenging for me because a lot of times the language was a little confusing and all the options used to look very similar. And whenever I used to analyze the question, I always took the second most popular incorrect answer or the most popular incorrect answer. So always fall for that trap, which most students did. Boldface was a struggling point for me.
It was a struggle, right? And how did you make sure that, did you do some focused practice? How did you make sure that, this does not consistently remain your weekend?
So I practiced on NEURON, the questions from official guide. So that did help me a lot. Plus, it was focused on a one particular subsection, and I could easily filter out the easy, medium, and hard ones. So just to boost confidence, I used to solve some easy and medium questions, and then I used to feel good and then move to hard. So again, NEURON did help a lot. Whenever I feel a bit disappointed with the scores I was getting on Scholarium, move to NEURON and
Great. Talk about your BI improvement as well. Like I had your scores here, you started off at a 74, which is maybe a 42 percentile at this point in BI 82. And it's a massive jump. It's a massive 8 points jump. So how did you go about tackling your BI?
So for D, it's the most forgiving section. Even if you attempt like 4 or 5 incorrect, you can still get a score above 80. So instead that I can always go back and review the questions, the past questions. So what changed for me during this time was to not waste time on a MSR question. So when I was taking the mocks, I used to spend a lot of time on a multi-source reasoning, and then I used to attempt that incorrectly. I used to get 1 or 2 correct out of 3, but the time spent was the major factor.
So how do you strategize it? You would initially skip the MSR if it seemed difficult and come back to it later? Is that what you're trying to say? And like, were you able to manage time? Were you able to save time on the other questions like DSTPA?
Yes, that did help a lot. Even on the test day, the MSR question was relatively easy, and at first glance through it, I thought, should I skip or not? But then I attempted, and I got, I think, 2 out of the 3. So
nice. But here the important thing is that yes, while MSR is time consuming, it's always better to make that judgment on the test whether you want to skip it or you want to solve it. Like in your case, while your strategy at the back of your mind was that if I have to save time, maybe MSR I would just skip. But on the test, it also happened that the MSR turned out to be slightly more easier, and you could solve it in that go. Right. Dina, I know that time management is something that a lot of students discuss that, and this strategy, how do you manage time? How was your timing looking like in DI overall?
In DI overall, MSR was the most time consuming for me. The other questions, data sufficiency and GI and table analysis, these were the ones where I was able to save time. So the GI exercises we had on the eGMAT platform, these were like really amazing, and the variety of questions that was covered there, that was really great. So that helped me a lot. And there was a point in time I was able to solve most of the GITA hard questions within a minute and a half. So that helped me. So that did help me save up some time to solve the MSR questions and manage time more efficiently there. Plus, on the test day, MSR, I think it came after I attempted 8 or 9 questions. So I had gotten that confidence. I was in the flow, and maybe that also helped. Had it been MSR appeared the 4th or 5th question, I would have panicked or I might have skipped. But since it came in later, I thought, okay, the flow is going great. I don't want to spoil it. So I'll solve it and then go ahead.
Right. Now, quants, you have a perfect humanity. So when you look back at your journey in quants and your prep, what are the key skills that you would suggest anyone to develop? They are aiming for anything above a 287 or a perfect quant score.
So for quant, I think the most fundamental part is your basic, all the percentages, fractions. If you have to be very, very comfortable with that. So this has to come like a muscle memory thing. You shouldn't have to think twice, like what is something I need to calculate here. So once this sorted, I believe the number of questions become very easier. But the arithmetic questions are something that still take up some time, and there is like scope of error. But I think, the first thing that anyone should do is get the basics ready: fractions, percentages, averages, mixture, speed, distance. So
right, that actually moves to practice, right? I think the foundation set the pace, and then you move to practice, and time set up to perfect it all. Right? So you have used a lot of questions on the platform in the form of cementing quizzes and sections. And we follow this logical sequence where we learn the concepts, then cementing, then sectionals, and finally the mocks. Right? So building your ability in this natural flow, how did that contribute to your, especially in verbal and
yeah. So in verbal, the PSP suggested me that I attempt a cementing quiz first, and then based on that, I go back to the course.
Right.
So I started with that. Cementing medium were okay, but the hard ones I really struggled with. But after that, attempted the cementing quizzes, and then I went back to the course. It helped me a lot because I had faced the kind of questions I would expect, so I was able to appreciate the concept more effectively. And all the things that were being said, especially like the theory part, is very limited in verbal. Like just a couple of videos that explain how to go ahead, when to especially around the basics.
Yes.
So after attempting cementing quiz, it helped me. Taking the course after the quiz helped me get better and appreciate the concepts more.
You were starting with a relatively higher ability. So, through the cementing quizzes, we could identify which are the portions that you exactly need to do from the course and target those. Right? Now, talking about sectionals, Nikhil, before we move to the mocks, how do you make sure that, or what were the test taking strategies you learned or developed using sectionals that you could replicate on the mocks also?
Yep. So for sectional tests, starting with quant was my strong area. So I used to focus on that. So, it's highly, what used to happen with me, sometimes I used to score below par. So since I was starting with the 89, 85 or 84 used to look pretty disappointing. The thing is, you have to like get used to a fact that not every day will be the best day. So having that mentality helped me with the sectionals. Okay, like if I'm getting a perfect score, it's not possible to get it every day. So that was one thing I learned from that. That helped me prepare my mind. Like I can't depend on quant alone. I need to focus more on DI and verbal. That was a major shift in mindset that happened after I started taking the quant mocks. But it would be really great. So for some reason, I used to score really good on the DI mocks on eGMAT, the sectional mocks, and I used to like taking those. Like that was at a level I used to spend more time on that. I'm liking it and doing it again and again, like multiple mocks.
Right.
I had to refrain myself from doing that and moving to work. But the sectional mock strategy I took was more or less similar to the actual mock strategy. Skipping MSR in the very first couple of mocks that I attempted. I straight away used to skip an MSR question and then moved ahead. And after I realized that skipping MSR used to save me around 7-8 minutes towards the end of the section. Once I had started seeing this kind of a pattern, I got an idea, okay, I can spend, if not 7-8 minutes, I can spend like 4-5 minutes on the MSR while taking the test itself. And that did help me refine my strategy further to attempt MSR along with the test itself. So
got it. And was there something that you noticed in verbal, some time management issues or some test taking skills that you worked around with on verbal sections?
Verbal was more or less very stable, like not very high score, but a stable score. And the weak point was again critical reasoning. Reading comprehension used to be pretty okay. So like I just used to make notes around critical reasoning, where I'm getting wrong, what are the logics, which point I missed. In my notebook itself, I used to write it down. Okay, this section, this sentence meant implied this, so and so. And the test day, I just used to like in the morning, I just glanced through the notes and went for the test, and that did help me like to a reminder of the points where I would falter.
Right. And exactly noting down where you're faulting and why helps you to realize and understand what you need to do differently the next time. Right? Now, full length mocks. Okay, I know you have taken a share number of mocks. So I wanted to understand and discuss more on the sectional ones, because I know this is a question that a lot of students have, and they often discuss with us as well. Like, what is the ideal sequence? Is it necessary to start with fonts or verbal? And I know it's slightly subjective. So what was your sectional order and what was the reasoning and logic behind? Why did you go with the section order that you did?
This was a question that I also used to have a lot. I discussed it with my friend as well, but nothing fruitful came out of it. At the end of the day, it's your personal choice what you prefer.
Right.
I used to start with quant. Then I used to take a break, that optional 7-8 minutes break, and then go to verbal. And the reason I used to do that was quant, I was pretty confident, and I used to save like, if the mock is going good, I used to finish it in like 30, 38, 37 minutes. So I used to have like 7-8 minutes towards the end of the test to review and maybe to even relax. So that was my plan. Like I could save some time on quant and relax before the next section. DI and quant being very similar, I'm in the flow of solving, getting used to the numbers and everything. So I planned DI right after quant, given I knew that, okay, I'll get at least 2 to 3 minutes of break before from the quant section. I can save at least 2-3 minutes to breathe a little. And for DI, it was always like, I hardly used to have 2 to 3 minutes left before completing the section. And if it's a good day, then 5 or 6 minutes, but not more than that. So DI, I knew that I would struggle with time. So before I start with verbal, it's better that I get that optional break in between the two sections. So that was my reasoning behind my sequence.
Right. So you also mentioned about reviewing and bookmarking questions. So is that a feature that you do often in your mocks and the actual test?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And how did you go about using it? What was your thinking behind it? What kind of question would you usually mark for review?
So I used to be very careful around the first 4 or 5 questions that I'm attempting. Even if I have even the slightest doubt on that, I would mark it for review and then go ahead. And for quant, it was pretty straightforward. Like I know the calculation is going right, but the calculation has been longer and there could have been some scope of error. I would mark that question. And if I know that there are multiple ways of solving the same questions and I don't have time to explore every one. This is especially around the questions around permutation and probability. So I used to solve it with approach 1 and then mark it so that I can go back and see, okay, if the other approaches would lead me to the same answer or not. This was my idea. And DI, data sufficiency questions I used to mark, like mostly these were marked for me. Table analysis was data sufficiency and table analysis. This was the area where I used to be extremely careful.
Right. And especially with your strategy where, you used to focus more on GITA, DS, and TPA for your DI score overall. I think it made more sense to be slightly more cautious in those questions and, you mark them for immediately if you have a bit of a doubt as well. Because knowing that GMAT is an adaptive test, how the algorithm, how sensitive it is always better to be careful. And you have the chance now to go back, fix it, which was not previously available on the GMAT. Right. Now, talking about the actual test, Nikhil, was your, I know we started off with that, and you mentioned that, while the test was going, you were comfortable, but still 725 was a bit of a surprise, a happy surprise. Right? So why don't you walk us through your actual test attempt, okay? The sequence that you followed, how did you go about managing your time, and how many questions did you go wrong? And when you look back into your score report, is it something that you feel you could have maybe taken better decisions or different decisions in those questions?
So on the actual test day, I started with Quant. I think it was third or fourth question where I had some doubt. Like I had an answer, but I knew that this could be incorrect. I marked it and move ahead. And I completed that section, I think, in 34 minutes. I had like good 10, 11 minutes in my hand. And the first thing I did, I went back to that third or fourth question. I solved that again with a different approach this time. And I changed the answer. So that, like initially the answer I marked was incorrect, and then I marked it to correct one. And the other ones I reviewed had a good, again, 2 to 3 minutes remaining before I start with DI. So on Quant, as I said, I had a Q90, all the questions were correct. And one question I had to review and edit. But despite that, I still got a Q90, which was surprising for me because there's a penalty if you edit your answers, but it doesn't look like it was the case.
Yeah, I think generally this is something that I've also seen previously, students getting a Q90 with going back and fixing one question. But also sometimes depends if that question was really hard question, then the difficulty of the subsequent question won't have dropped. So what happens is the weighted accuracy it's still on the higher end, it's still hard questions. So even if you go back and fix it, it does not make much of a difference in the overall score, right? What about DI and verbal method? How did you go about tackling those sections on the list?
DI in the first, I had 3 incorrect questions in the section in total. Even the first one was incorrect, and that was on a critical reasoning base. Yeah, it was a TPA with a critical reasoning angle, and critical reasoning being something I'm very scared of. So even while attempting, I had an idea like it's not going great, but again, I had to mark something. It was the first question. I spent like good 2-3 minutes, but still couldn't get to what I need, something that fits the puzzle perfectly. I moved ahead, again, completed the section with 5 minutes remaining, went back to that first question, thought again, but couldn't find a better answer. Eventually, that question was incorrect only. So like I did not fix any questions on DI section, but I had time to review, I think 5 or 6 questions that I had marked for review.
And what about verbal? I think that's the final section that you took up.
Yep. So verbal, I came after the break. I had my nerves calm and I composed myself. Okay, we'll see where it goes. Because so far the test had been satisfactory for me. And I believe I make total of 5 incorrect questions out of 23 in verbal. And again, the critical reasoning part was okay. Like it was not as bad as I would have expected on the actual eGMAT mocks. But the test went good. I was expecting 4 reading comprehensions, but surprisingly there were only 3. So towards the end of it, I was hoping, okay, the question 20 first will be a reading comprehension, but again, it came out to be a CR question. And then I knew that the rest of these would also be CR. Right.
But I think it all worked out for you because I know verbal you were a little hesitant about, CR being slightly an issue, but you still landed up with a V86, which is a great score in verbal, right? Compared to, knowing that DI was something you're comfortable. And that's why we always say, don't rely on one section completely. Always do not put your eggs in one basket. Try to spread it out because sometimes on the test, when, a section that you thought could have been done better, because in DI, I know for your mocks, like you said, or your sectionals, you were enjoying it because the score was always good. But I think in your test, verbal came out to be as a winner for you. Right?
Yes.
So, Nikhil, when you look back at your journey, what would be some key tips that you would like to share with the other GMAT aspirants? Some do's and don'ts that you have learned along the way.
So I would say it's better to take guidance early instead of spending time on your own figuring things out. Like So what I'd done initially, I had started watching some videos on YouTube. While those videos helped, it did not provide a very structured process for me to follow. It gave me some familiarity around the concepts, the type of questions asked, like what data sufficiency is, what GITA is, and so on. But again, had I taken eGMAT subscription earlier, I would have had enough time or enough pace to complete my course better, or even I would say scored better. So for anyone who's just starting, I would say take professional help from the very start. It's always better to have some guiding principle to follow rather than finding a way out on your own, because time is of the essence. So for me, it was like I prepped for only 2.5, 3 months. So had I started with eGMAT earlier than I did, I would have had a full 3 months of focused prep. In the other way, I spent some time. Again, I don't say it got wasted, but it could have been better. It could have been that time better, so that maybe the score could have come earlier. I could have attempted the test earlier, anything like that.
Yes. I take this moment to thank you for taking our time today. And I know you've just come back from a trip, but you've still managed to do this. And I'm sure that this discussion, these insights would be really helpful to a lot of students who are still in their prep, trying to figuring out maybe cementing more sectional order, because there's a lot of questions that come in when you are in that ship and trying to sail through. So on that note, Nikhil, I would really like to congratulate you again from the entire team, and thank you, and we wish you all the best for your applications, and we look forward to now the admit email. I think that would be really exciting. Yeah. So thank you for doing this, Nikhil.
Thank you, Abha.